the starting point was that while youth organizations usually have very good skills in non-formal learning, networking, and several other fields, they haven't found the time, or they haven't had the prioritization to deal with advocacy. However, we believe that we need to be part of the decision-making processes. We need to be there when things that are related to our work are discussed. And for this reason, we decided to have this series of 6 trainings, at least starting with 6 every second Friday. The title is Friday for Advocacy. It will be 45 minutes long each, and it will be offered by one of the participants in the network. The network is made of approximately 70 organizations that are formally connected to the network that is called the Partnership for Youth, and another approximately 70 members that are co-signing a campaign that is ongoing, which was collectively created and is led by Inter Alia, and is titled Life Beyond EU Funding, and is related to the allocation practices of Erasmus Plus funding to youth organizations, and aims to increase the quota of operational funding to youth structures. I talk too much. With no further ado, I would like to give the floor to my good friend and colleague, Duke Marty, who's working for Fundación Catalunya Voluntaria, an organization we have been working with for some time. Inter Alia, that is, has been working with some time with significant results, I think. He will be delivering the this first session. Thank you very much, Youth. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nikos. Welcome, all of you, and thank you for your time and for your interest about this topic that we're going to discover a bit more from our perspective. So this is like, when I was preparing this online training session, I have to go through close to 20 years of experience and background. Most of this time, we were not aware we were doing advocacy, to be honest, but also from my personal experience, when I was not aware I was acting as an advocate, and when after I learned I was an advocate. And also and it helped me a lot to really discover myself what is advocacy about. And what I'm going to present, it's both like my personal experience, my NGO experience, but it's mainly based on the good fortune I had to meet with many outstanding individuals and people who were the leaders of global campaigns, who were like the kind of advocates that can be very inspiring. I'm a kind of a slow person, so for me, it takes me a lot of time to really consolidate knowledge and understand things. So making and preparing this presentation, it helped me a lot to understand. But it's good also that we are in the first section, so it will be very introductory. And I hope that during the next sessions, we can go more into details. So my approach is not academic. I didn't check any book to prepare this presentation, but I was just thinking and reflecting on what was my experience and learning about the things that I would like to hear before to be aware that I was advocating. So I can, it could help me really to be more effective and have more impact in my work. So what I'm going to present you briefly, we can really like devote a lot of sessions, a lot of time. It will be basically to help you to look at advocacy as an opportunity for you and your organization to improve, like do things with more impact, with more quality, with more effects, and also to improve professionally and personally. So let me share. I prepared a PowerPoint presentation so I can share with you. So can you see? Wait. like this. Okay, so why is basically to encourage you really to act as advocates and to understand that advocacy is part of your role as a youth organization. This is the basic idea, really to encourage you, to tell you it's possible to do it, and it's a wise and it's intelligent strategy to achieve your mission, to improve the quality, and as I said, the impact of your programs and your work as part of an NGO. It can give you also a lot at the individual and at professional level. So this is the reason why. It's important also to say that if you have any questions, you can write them in the chat. If you can also raise your hand and stop me at any time. Don't hesitate. So, you know what advocacy, it's a zero poverty campaign, it's the sustainable development goals, it's to look for the good causes. So one thing I learned when reflecting from my experience is that we're talking about a very serious thing. It surprised me that anybody from the people I've been working with in advocacy, nobody used sense of humor. I support sense of humor as a strategy to achieve many things, but not for advocacy. So we're talking about very serious and relevant thing. As we can see here, we're talking about the poverty, we're talking about justice, about fight against discrimination. So this is very close to our mission as an NGOs. And we can easily feel ourselves comfortable in any of these fights or battles or struggles to achieve any of these serious and relevant things. It's also, we can see that it really touch, I mean, we're talking about these things, there are things that really touch us personally, not only as organizations. So my first thesis statement is, if we can do it, you can also do it. This is very important. And well, I'm not saying it's an easy thing. Of course, it's very complex, but it's very possible. And my luck or bad luck is that, like, really being part of an advocacy campaign, you learn that you can do it. And then you cannot say, I cannot do it, because you did it. So your role is really to support others to discover by themselves, by practice, that it's 100% possible to do it. So these are the topics I'm going to talk about. What is it? Advocacy for beginners and tips for NGOs and individuals. So what are the things to consider when trying to make an advocacy action or campaign and to be successful, basically. So who can, this is a question to you. I will ask you to raise your hand. Okay, let's say raise the 2 hands, those who you consider that you are doing advocacy. And 1 if you are not sure. 1, you are not sure. 0, you are not. 2, you are. Okay, so some people they don't consider at all. Some people, yes. What about your organization? Let me ask you the same question. Is your organization doing advocacy? Yes or no? Okay. What about the people with, I cannot see? You can also like write it down in the comments so I can see. So they're like, can I ask you those? Okay, let me ask you a more specific question. Like, do you think that advocacy is part of the role of a youth organization? Yes, no, or it depends? That will be a yes. Thank you, Mateo. What about you, Stavros? Yes, Boyka? Stavros? What do you think? Do you think it's a part of a youth organization to advocate? Stavros? Benedetta? Sorry, I cannot see your names. Wait. Okay, I will tell you the main, the reasons why people say This is not our role, or this is. Most of the organizations, they will say, I'm part of a network or a second level organization, so they do advocacy. They are the ones who are talking with the decision makers. I'm not. I'm busy with other things. Or there are people saying, no, this is the role of the political leaders, the decision makers, the presidents of the government, for example, or the ministers. Well, I'm not doing it because this is too much for me. I don't have the capacities. I don't consider it is my role. So as you can see, these are all many things we can do about it. Just by explaining to the people we work that this is our role, you're making the difference. So sometimes we just forget to mention the things and to explain the things. I believe, as you can imagine, that this is part of our role, for sure, because we can do it much better than the government or the members of the parliament. I will explain you later on the reasons why, but basically it's because we are aware of the needs and the situations. So we're in contact with the people who are like, we are trying to support and so on, but this I will explain you later. In some countries, it's risky to advocate. People, they feel in danger and they don't have the courage because they are afraid of their own freedom, for example. So that's why why it's a serious thing, because it can be a risky type of activity when, for example, advocates, they are like not obeying the law, which can also happen in some of the cases. So, okay, this is the definition from, not from Wikipedia, but from 2 dictionaries. Advocacy is to gain public support for an idea, plan, or a way of doing something. So give us a first idea about is to get support. So people, they will support a cause, and this is the main focus. Other definition is to influence the decisions of the authority. So this is different because then you see the impact. What is the impact? It's a decision taken by the parliament, by those who are making the laws, by the government, those who are like implementing the laws and the different norms. So it's a decision changing reality, taken by authority. So it gives us a clear idea that the target is not the public, the general public, but the governments and the decision makers. So there are 2 different definitions. But what else? This is the international symbol for what else. Because we all want to change the world. This is from the Beatles, Revolution, one of my favorite bands. So most of the times they are kind of like, it's a problematic definition. It's challenging and sometimes tricky. For example, in your language, in Spanish, advocacy, you can translate it by incidencia pública, which is public impact. In other countries, the meaning it changed. It's like poetry. When you change the language, you lost something in translation. But most of the people, they, I mean, the difficulty is to see what is advocacy and what is campaigning, what is advocacy and what is lobbying, what is advocacy and what is awareness raising, what is advocacy and what is activism. So what are the main differences and similarities about this? I was thinking about, and finally, for me, it's kind of clear. For example, campaigning, all equal, all different. No, this was a campaign from the Council of Europe to say, we are all the same, we are all have the same human rights and freedoms, but to keep our difference and recognize cultural diversities as something we need to appreciate is basic for everybody to feel part of society, blah, 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 and feel recognized in many other of their human rights. So this is like a campaign. So you are like targeting the general public and you're raising awareness about an issue. You want to change the paradigm, you want to change the mindset of the people. But this is not advocacy, because advocacy, from my understanding, is to change the law. not just to change the mindset of the general public, which will be the main objective of campaigning, but advocacy is to change the law, to change the system by creating something new, which creates new rights, new opportunities, new duties. So it's, for example, if all different, all equal, it's a campaign. But if the all different, all equal campaign tries to achieve that intercultural learning, it's part of the formal curricula in all the European member states, this is an advocacy. Because you are identifying what is the law, what is the system, that it does not exist, and you need to create. Or you find the law in the system that says you have to create intercultural learning or intercultural communication as part of the curriculum, but you are not following the law that already exists. So this is advocacy. So you are like really targeting the authority, not the general public, and giving them a solution, not to change the mindset, but also to change reality and change the system, the structure of the system, meaning the laws, the programs, the budget, the agencies, institutions, etc. What is the difference between advocacy and lobbying? Lobbying, it's focused on defend your own interest. You are part of, you are a sector, you are a profession, you are representing a profession, you are representing an ideology, or whatever. You can represent a religion, you can represent a specific community, and then you are defending and protecting your rights as a group or as a community. Advocating, it's thinking about everyone. It's thinking about the general public. It's not only about one specific situation of one group of individuals, we can say. Or like you're not, it's like you're not presenting your own interest, but you're thinking about other people's interests. So that will be some of the differences. But it's like a tricky, because you can defend where there are campaigns fighting against racism, for example, that you can say you are defending your interests because you are part of that community. But if you can see, like these initiatives, they are not made by people who are from the same community they want to defend and represent. So these are the small differences. Awareness raising, it's part of campaigning, and lobbying, campaigning, and awareness raising can be also part of advocacy, but they cannot explain by themselves the whole meaning and the importance that it has. About activism, that's another topic. Activism, it's like, it's showing like different type of actions you can do, like protesting, demonstrating, like acting as a watchdog, asking for law enforcement, like going even to the court, you know. There are like different, many different ways activists can do that advocates cannot. I was in the European Youth Center many years ago, and one person asked, what is the difference between volunteers and activists? I was thinking like, okay, that's an interesting question. Let's see what the trainers are saying. But the trainers, they give the answer back. And I was raising my hand and said, okay, for me, it's clear. The activists don't need to follow the law, but the volunteers, they have to, because they are part of an organization and they're acting on their behalf. Of course, there are other differences, like the type of action. So this is very interesting because activists who are part of your organization and who can advocate, you don't need to have any link with them. They don't need to be volunteers. They don't need to be a part of your teams. They don't need to work in your organization, but they can have no specific relationship at all. They can be just individuals or people. And this is what happens in some countries, which is a bit more risky to do advocacy action. So this is a kind of, this is one of the topics that for organizations really to think about. There are some organizations like Greenpeace or Platforms Against Racism that they're claiming, protesting, demonstrating, and they can even do civil disobedience. But this has to be very clear for the organizations because they are like putting the organizations in danger, not just the individuals. So this is a very important thing to consider. Okay. So there are some of the, but if you see the what are the actions, the when the actions are taking place, and the who you are targeting, the differences are clear. Because the what, this is our approach. The what, from our understanding, is to change reality, creating new rights and opportunities for individuals by a law, program, or a structure, or to ensure that a law that exists, it's followed. So this is law enforcement. You know, this the big crisis we have with the refugees, the humanitarian crisis with the refugees. You know that the governments, they're just not following the agreements they have already signed with asylum seekers and with refugees, for example. So the role will be to ask them, okay, you signed for this agreement, you just need to follow it. But it's also about creating new laws, new programs, so people, they can enjoy from rights. So the what is this? Changing the system by making the authorities to change and create a law or follow the law. The when, we're talking about the project. Okay, when you're planning about one project and when the advocacy is taking place, ideally should take place during the whole project length. When from the first idea, when you are trying to think what you need to do, my suggestion will be always to think what is the situation. Who is the authority taking the decisions about this issue? Is the local municipality? Is the regional government? Is our national government? Is the European Commission? Who are responsible for taking the decisions? So this should be the target of the advocacy action. And it can be part of the whole project because it really requires first to look for information, to find the data, to find the statistics about the situation. So it involves maybe research and need analysis at the beginning. So if you want to get at the end some changes related with advocacy and changing reality, but it's during the whole process. It's not one specific campaign at the end, like showing results, but it's like getting into discussions and conversations and creating allies during the whole process and activities. So this is about the when, and about the who. It's like yeah, it's the target, the important thing to consider. But okay, I share our definition, and I share like 2 official definitions from the dictionary. But we also know that advocacy is something more. It's about making noise and creating trouble. It's about building the agenda of the political leaders and authorities and be part of the decision making, as Nico said, but also like shift priorities to put the agenda, build agenda. And you can also explain that it's like fight for equal rights and against discrimination, so change history. I don't know if what you think about these definitions. Will you agree that advocacy is part of it also, Matteo?
Definitely a big part of it, yes.
I love the making noise part.
Yes, Boyka?
I'm clapping on the introduction of this second meaning. So it's not only about changing the law, but it's launching the activities that will lead us to eventually to the change in law.
If you find like about making noise and creating trouble, the main leaders and the main advocates in the history, they have been labeled as troublemakers by many people, by most of the people. So we can say that if you have not been named as a provocative troublemaker and noise maker.
Agitator.
Agitator,
Very good.
Probably you're not a good advocate. If you are not aware of what is the agenda, what are the white books, the commission recommendations, the treaties, if you don't know what is there already, it's very difficult to go for change. You have to start from what is there. What is there is what is the system saying that you have as your rights, and that is an opportunities. So this is very important, because you as an NGO, in a way you go like blindfolded as far as you are not learning what are the institutions who are making the decisions about these issues who are working, if you know what are the laws that are obliged for these institutions to follow. So this is like, maybe some people, maybe you are not interested about this, but for sure, there's other people with a different mindset or with different interests who will be really interested about that. I study law, for example, and for me, it's always clear the big difference between something which is in the law and something which is out of the law. And this is a very important tool you can use in every of the actions you're doing. And if you see, when you are doing actions and projects, you are like collecting evidence for the reasons why you are doing your work, and the reasons why this is not only for one person, one project, and one individual to understand, but it's for the whole society. So we have made many projects that, thanks of being part of decision-making agencies or councils or commissions, we could be in those meetings where a very few organizations were asked, and we'll say, okay, let's make this law, let's change this article, let's put that as a suggestion. So they were giving us the space. In some countries, they are giving us a lot of spaces like this, and we're not taking these seats. When this could be the best investment to really not having to fight project per project, call per call to get the support, but to ensure that this is something considered as relevant as part of the system, as part of the policy related with social, education, welfare, etc. So, for example, we make a project many years ago about volunteering of families, family members volunteering together. So it went very well. So we were in this commission, and okay, the municipality considered it as a good practice. So in the next, they even open a new grant to this type of volunteering with families. So it's about finding the opportunity. And yeah, I think this is very important. So you have to understand what is the agenda for the politicians, understand that they are lost. In most of the cases, they are lost and they don't know where to go. They are busy with other things and they need us more than we need them. This is the very important thing. It's about changing history. Why I'm saying that? Like I've been I was many years ago in a youth conference with people from young leaders from all over the world, mostly from Asia and Africa. You could see all the Asians in the last seats, all sleeping, or many of them, they were sleeping because of the jet lag, I guess. So the speakers, they were like, raise your hand, those who want to influence the life of 10 people. Okay, so everybody was raising their hand. Okay, raise your hand, those who want to make influence on 1,000 people. Everybody was raising it. And after some questions, they were asking, raise your hand, those who want to influence 1 million people. I was thinking, I don't know, I never thought about it. But these are the type of the right questions you can do as part of your organization. In our case, it's a kind of amazing because two of my former colleagues, they were playing in the finals of the World Championship of Advocacy. This is like using a sport metaphor. So imagine 21 members of the Security Council of United Nations. The Security Council, you know, they have permanent members and they have like changing members. So 21 of them raising their hands and approving per unanimity a resolution which is compulsory that all the countries, members of United Nations, they have to follow because it's binding. And it talks about youth, peace, and security. There were 3 years working, and this is the only resolution that exists on this topic. There were 3 years working, 4 people, 2 of them former colleagues working for FCB, one Meg from the Philippines and Romero from Spain. I was in the same office. I do nothing about it, but I knew what they were doing. So it was 3 years work to achieve that, and 2 more people, they were part of that, as part of United Network of Young Peace Building, which and another big international organization. So be part of these organizations like Inter Alia, for example. This is a success factor. But okay. So I try to be concise. And sorry if I talk too many stories. You can also stop me. So I try to put why it's, what is the add value of doing advocacy actions? For me, it's very clear because of the impact and the change. For example, in our NGO, it's for some years, we're trying to make a campaign. And this is why I'm so interested about this topic, because the campaign, I want to create and make it happen, which is the right, individual right of volunteering, equal volunteering opportunities for all. So every individual should have the right to volunteer as part of European citizenship and global citizenship. So that's why I have to learn by myself about advocacy. It's also true that I've been invited twice to the Catalan Parliament, and I feel lucky to see articles that they wanted to put in the law. I had to fight to put it out of the law and the opposite. So once you have this experience of really discussing, arguing in the parliament in front of the Lady D of the volunteer sector, because she's very recognized and famous person. So this is also important. Like not everybody can do advocacy. These 2 people I work with, they had a specific and very unique skills about being super well organized, super stubborn, had a lot of courage, they were very hard workers, but I could do it by myself also. Like I had some success in advocacy. This time I was in the parliament. What I learned from that time, you have to act as a fighter, really. Imagine if you are in front of the queen or the king or the president of the government. If you want to support your view, you have to be ready to fight, of course, like by discussing and by arguing, in order to put your argument over the other. So that was like, I was against any type of fight because I'm the most naive person. But if you are the naive person, maybe you don't have the right capacities to be in the parliament, trying to act against the person who everybody considers the leader of the movement in your country. So I had to do it. For me, it's easy to be naive and say, yes, 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 yes. But no, it's something that you have to feel this energy inside of you, and you have to be a values-driven person. All of you, you know the people who have these special skills, who have very strict deadlines with their values, with their morals, who are very coherent, and so on. These are the type of people you need for your advocacy campaigns. Those who will like be able to encourage everyone, to achieve that. Okay, so these are the reasons: impact and change. If you create a law and you recognize the right to volunteer, it will be good for generations. And it will help those who don't have the papers now, who cannot volunteer, for example, or those who have, because of nowadays, people are not volunteering because of many reasons. So this will create the opportunities for them. So the change and the impact will be amazing. Imagine creating a law and creating a new right in countries where it does not exist. Cost effectiveness means that is the best investment of time and resources if you know what the impact will be. So if you create a new agency in your country or a new program to, for example, to grant people who need the support of a social worker, for example, this is, you don't have to ask for help for social workers every time, but it's better to create a program where the welfare department in your country is really creating a budget for that purpose. So this is the cost effectiveness. This is not what it was Kami Naidoo. Kami Naidoo, he was the director of Civicus, who I was in a conference in Mexico. He said, okay, devote your time, efforts, and money for advocacy, because the impact will be the biggest than doing project per project. Or what I will say is use any of the projects or any of the activities that you are doing to collect and build evidence, so you can show the results and the effects, and you can use that as an argument. But use your capacities as project manager. You know, European Commission, it's only talking about evidence and resilience. Okay, evidence. We need evidence. Evidence, it's basic for advocacy because it's about answering these needs, not because I believe it's necessary, but because the statistics and the data shows we have this problem. So it's a very serious thing also because it's based on the real needs of the individuals, and the evidence you are creating, it can really support your advocacy campaign. Also, an add value is that it's complex and exciting. If we're used to work for social purposes, using non-formal intercultural learning and doing youth mobilities, it's also because we like this kind of excitement and this challenge in our everyday life. So doing advocacy, it's also a very exciting thing. Imagine this, I mean, every time my colleagues were explaining me this, like watching the members of the Security Council raising their hands and learning that now there will be like many young people who are refugees. I mean, the impact, once you have created the law, you have to be aware also that you need to keep track on the authorities so they will follow the law they have created. Because it can also happen, you do a lot of, you spend a lot of energies to have a law or a treaty, and then the authorities are not following it. So that's why it's important to learn what is the law which applies. So these are the 4 main things, but this is the main rule. Can you see? No. Can you see? The main rule is they need you. Okay, that was my insight. If I had to tell you what is my most relevant insight about advocacy, is the day I discovered that they need us more than we need them. So we're talking about the head of your municipality, the Ministry of Youth or Education, the President of the government, the President of the European Commission. They need you more than you need them. That's obvious from the authority they have. I mean, you know, the authority they have is because they are representing and they need to follow these laws and because they have been selected in a democratic system. But also the power they have is not their power, it's the power that belongs to the people, as you know. So this is not being naive. This is how the democratic system works. So when I said that they need us more than we need them, is because they won't change the system. They will be more like keeping the things how they are. If you see all the changes in society, from the vote for women, like fight against apartheid, like all the things that the protocol of Kyoto, like all the treaties, like commercial treaties who were stopped, like all the improvements in society have been thanks to individuals and civil society. And you don't need a big number of people. It's a small number of people with different capacities who can make big changes. We have a lot of examples. Like, for example, the mayor of Barcelona, my favorite city in the world, she's for 6 years mayor, Ada Colau. She was voted because she was very famous as the leader of a movement to support people who had to go out from their homes because of the mortgage. People affected by the mortgage, people who cannot pay, and the banks, they kick them out. So she was very well known. People were acting. Everybody in Barcelona have been stopping police from taking some people out from their homes thanks to that movement. So she was elected. When she was elected, can you imagine that she didn't make any real change about this situation? She could really make more changes as civil society leader than as the mayor. And this is a good example, I believe, from what is our role. You have many examples that from Rose Parks, that lady that she sit in the bus in the States and she changed the laws about civil rights in the United States. And you can find also many examples from your own country, I believe, about individuals. Okay, so I have a lot of stories. And the next...
I would just bring your attention a little bit to the question of time.
Yeah, we're out of time.
We are a little bit out of time, yes, to say it positive, just slightly. But I mean, just to mind the time and try to make it a little bit short, to have a few questions maybe asked on the side, in the chat.
Well, yeah, to conclude, it's like, for me, it's very important to say that I have met with people who were if you remember the MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, it was an initiative of a guy named Salim Shetty, which was a young Indian American. And I had the opportunity to meet this guy. So he was the most normal guy, he looked like a normal student, good student, you know, perfect son of law. Or Kamin Aidu also, who was like a leader, or it was this Australian guy who was the creator of a zero poverty campaign before the MDGs even. So they were all very normal people. So my next 2 slides are about the type of capacities these people have and make them special. And this is for you as a strategy to identify those in your organization who have these special skills, and you can really encourage them to be part of advocacy actions in your organization. So this you can read. So they are very much connected to all of your activities, I believe, or many of them. So you can easily identify those who have these special skills, or you can use advocacy and the type of actions you are already doing to really connect them with skills development of the people you are working with. So these are ones, and these are another ones. Be elegant. Be elegant. This is something also that I learned from preparing this presentation. You need to shave, dress nicely, iron your shirt and all this if necessary. This is a good example of the things that maybe we're not used to do or we're not comfortable, but we have to do because we're advocating. So this is also interesting. You're always asked to do something new, something challenging. And this is also a good strategy to keep people involved on your organization. And well, this is basically the presentation. Thank you very much. And I should put the picture of Rose Parks better than Josh Clooney, to be honest. So, questions?
If you want, we can take the shared screen out so we can see each other and yes, open a little bit for discussion if there are questions.
Yes, please.
Yes, let's see if there are questions from the audience, and if you don't want to speak them out, we can have them in the chat. Otherwise, you were saying something.
No, I had a lot of tips and things that I didn't mention. I prepared it for maybe the double of time. But yeah, I think that this also you can like find it in the books. I suggest you also to find it in the books. I can find like some references of interesting books. I also organize different trainings on the topic of advocacy, like be a youth correspondent, high-tech communication tools, 360 degrees media piece on media, and now youth leadership for advocacy. So I'm a learner, so I'm not consider myself an expert on this topic, but what this is important is that it's about finding the opportunity and learning that you, as a conclusion, you can do it. And this is very wise strategy that has only advantages, despite of being time demanding, which is true, and despite of being kind of like complex in a way that you cannot control it by yourself. It's always like a teamwork. But yeah, that's it from my side.
Hugh, may I ask, do you consider, I mean, advocacy from the part of civil society a privilege of more advanced democracies? I mean, or you think what differentiates, let's say, Spain, that is an advanced democracy, to another country in Asia or Africa, for instance, in terms of advocacy? You think
I'm not putting my life in danger. I can put my job in danger. I can put my friendships, my relationships in danger, but not my life or my, my human rights. This is a big difference. But at the end, it's not so different. I mean, it's what you put in danger, well, if you ask me. But you still need courage.
Hey, Boyka?
I didn't raise my hand.
I have to say that you have to be very careful also as individual, not being yourself manipulated. When you're talking, when the what, if you understand the what and the who from our definition of advocacy, it can help you a lot to identify if you are part of a movement which is like promoting hate speech, promoting fear, promoting like creating fake enemies, or just blaming others and being a victim. So it can be dangerous because you're not really creating anything positive and you're being manipulated and brainwashed. So that's a big difference than being part of an initiative that you can really go for change. So this is something that you as an individual, I would suggest you to meet with the people to really know where you are getting in, because it's also true that individuals, we have a lot of good wishes with desires, and sometimes we can find ourselves in a group of people who, I mean, as far as they are not targeting those who can really make the difference. So I was part of an advocacy team that I learned after some years that they were trying to blame one government that they have nothing to do about the decision they wanted to change. So it helped me to understand that I was being manipulated. So they were not really trying to do advocacy, but just had another agenda. So this is another things that are kind of, but as an NGOs, we have to stop being silent. We really need to make noise. Why we cannot demonstrate, why we cannot claim, why we cannot protest, why we cannot go to the court and ask them. I mean, we need to use the tools we have in our system that can support our mission. And advocacy is just one of them. Mm-hmm.
There is a question in the chat. If you could tell us which was the favorite advocacy initiative you participated in.
Well, the best is the one that is still not done yet. So I see that it will be someday that everyone should have the right to volunteer. The same, you have the right to create a syndicate or trade union or an organization or to demonstrate. I believe it's completely necessary as the connection with human dignity, which is the root in every other human right and freedom, to recognize the right to volunteer. So that will be the next milestone we'll try to achieve.
I don't want to be ignorant, but to seem ignorant, but who exactly are you referring to? Who doesn't have the right to volunteer?
Well, people who are refugees, for example, or who don't have the documents. But also, if you see the statistics, people who don't have good education, who don't speak the language, who have some disability, they also are not volunteering.
I was wondering if there is no other question. I have a question of my own related to how many times campaigns and advocacy campaigns are instrumentalized by governments or by decision makers to show that they are interested in what civil society has to say. Do you have any idea of what the line of defense towards such a practice would be? I mean, many times, in order to claim that decision makers are very democratic or that they listen to the civil society, they pretend to be taking on board an advocacy campaign, but actually not being willing to do something like that. So when do we discuss with the other, and in which case do we stop discussing with the other side?
Well, by nature, political leaders on power, they cannot move. They do advocacy because they have the capacity to change the law. I mean, it's something against those who are decision making in most of the cases. You can, like, if you have created a law and you want to campaign and raise awareness about a topic that you have already created the law, like now you have this right, or we're making this promotion of to have a healthy life, for example, or to use a mask. This is campaigning. It's to change the law, and this is against. So a political leader, they can never do civil disobedience. In our Catalan government, they're like political leaders who are like promoting civil disobedience, which is a contradiction, incoherent, and it's impossible to do. You cannot do civil disobedience being a leader, a political leader in the government, because it's civil. By its own definition, you cannot be in the power and do civil disobedience.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Maybe from the ones who haven't spoken yet.
Well, thank you for your time then. And if, well,
there is a question. No,
it's not a question, but before leaving, stay for the picture.
Okay.
So there are a few more people. If you want, you can open the cameras just for the picture. Smile.
That's too much to ask, I think. Okay.
Thank you all. And okay, sorry, Yuk, I interrupted you, but I was afraid. We're going to interrupt this, and I will stay behind without the picture.
All right, then let's wrap it up. Thank you very much, Yuk, for the very useful insights and tips and experiences that you shared and the stories. This was the first session of Fridays for Advocacy, the series of trainings that will be ongoing at least for 5 more sessions. We will be having 2 weeks from now a second session led by Matteo. Matteo, do you have in mind the title or something? Maybe you could share with us.
I do have something in mind. I still want a couple of days to think through about that, but I think I'm going to be presenting you something on change. How to change things when things are hard to change. I'm going to present you a framework that has been developed by a book, and like we'll see if it's interesting or not. This is my idea for now, but like I
have a lot of notes I can share.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you, everyone.
In a couple of days and see if it's still workable.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. And if you enjoyed, we look forward to meeting you 2 weeks from now on the Good Friday. excellent planning on for our Greek audience. But we will be here anyway. Take care. Thank you.
Have a nice weekend. Ciao.
Thank you, Yuk, so much.
Thank you, Luke. It's been very nice.
See you on the street.
Yes.
And best of